I wanted to kind of make a video talking about this topic for quite a minute now, but now that, I have the confidence to, I'm going to speak about it. Life that there are some skinny women that use fatter or more obese women to look better than and to get more attention from men. This is something that I kind of just observed throughout my experiences through life, and I just wanted to talk about it because, I don't think anyone talks about it that much. People always talk about how bigger girls love to shame fat girls, and bigger girls love to shame skinny girls, and they love to just tear them down when they should be losing weight. But no one ever talks about the other side of the coin and how skinny women tend to befriend bigger girls, and while simultaneously shaming girls that are slightly smaller than their bigger friend. And I don't know, I just want to talk about that dynamic a little bit because no one else talks about it that much. So, in order to talk about this dynamic, I wanted to bring up a real life example that I went through that has kind of stuck with me. So, there was this skinny girl sitting across from me. Me and her have always had issues. And then there was this mutual friend we had, surprisingly enough, who was sitting next to me. She was way bigger than me. And out of nowhere, she sits down and she just started fat shaming me. She was like, "You're fat." And our bigger friend, was like, "Well, if she's fat, what does that make me?" And she straight up tells this girl, "Oh, well, you're not fat, you're big boned." And I was just in my head, that made me feel really bad about myself because it's like, you're just making fun of me. And one thing that I noticed about this girl is that she's always body shamed. She always body shamed me. Like one time she made fun of my ass, saying, "Oh, her ass is flat." Mind you, she's skinny and barely has any ass herself. So it's like, why are you making fun of me? And another thing that I noticed too is that one time she got mad because I had made a note that she, was late to class, and she called me a fat bitch for that, even though the teacher would have found out anyway, because, they have to keep track of tardiness and attendance. So I was like, why are you getting mad at me for something that the teacher would have already discovered on her own? And even try to like confront and threaten me. And it's like, girl, like well, not I wouldn't say threaten, she was trying to intimidate me. And I'm just like, girl, what is your And I always thought to myself, like, what is this girl's problem? But I've always had this issue throughout my life where girls that were extremely skinny, like I'm talking about like Ariana Grande type of skinny, always trying to body shame me. Like, how are you gonna body shame me and you have fat friends? Like, you don't think that's gonna make your fat friends feel bad? Like, another instance I had with this girl who was like literally borderline anorexic. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, she looked like how Ariana Grande does now, where she's like way too skinny. Like, she literally looks like that. And she was trying, like, I posted something about how I'll never let anybody ruin my self esteem ever again. And she just straight up, literally, like, I guess she took that as a challenge. And she began trying to make fun of me on Snapchat, make fun of my looks, and basically try to tear down my self esteem. After I said that I would never let anybody ruin my self esteem, she took that, like, it's like she took that as like a challenge, like a mission. Like she needed to ruin my self esteem and make me see myself as fat and ugly. And it was so weird. And it's funny because that very same summer, she ended up getting diagnosed with anorexia. And then there was another instance I had with a close friend of mine. Now, this close friend, when I look back on it, I feel like I could do a whole story time about our friendship and how fake she was to me. But I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to focus on something that I noticed throughout our friendship. And that was she always was very close to a bigger girl. And throughout my life, I will say, oh my God, I'll say I wasn't necessarily fat. Well, technically, medically, I would be considered fat. Like I think growing up, I was always around like 200 pounds. So medically, I'd be considered fat. But a lot of people wouldn't consider my size, especially since I'm 5'6". 200 pounds at 5'6". A lot of people wouldn't consider that fat, even though clinically I would be considered fat. But that's besides the point here. I was, I noticed that she would always befriend people who you would really be like, okay, they're fat. They're definitely fat, you know? And I noticed that she'd always keep me at a distance. She wouldn't really let people know about my life. But the first people who knew about her life was one of them fat girls she would always be close to. And in my mind, I didn't really realize it until I got older now. And I'm just like, this girl really would always, like, even though I was supposed to be her best friend, she would always keep me out of the loop of what was going on in her life. And I was always be the last one to know. Now, usually, I feel like when you have somebody as a best friend, the best friend is always the first friend you tell about anything going on. Love, life, personal, business, like whatever, anything. And she never told me anything about her personal life. I think I didn't even know that, her like she had a bunch of family of drug addicts. Like she lied to me and told me her brother died in a car accident. And and it wasn't until like a drug assembly she finally had told me about, her why her brother actually died. And I just noticed throughout our friendship she would never really tell me the full truth, but anybody else who was bigger than her, like way bigger than me, they would always be the first ones to know about what was going on. And I always wondered why she did this. Why was I always at arm's length despite being her best friend, but all these other people were not. And I feel like all three of those had in common was, I don't know. I honestly believe that it probably was like some form of intimidation or jealousy, which I don't know why, because around that time I had a hard time, finding love. So I don't know. But then again, with my best friend, always, she always had a man. She always had a man. She was rarely ever single throughout, like when she started dating, she was rarely ever single. So maybe she was upset at the fact that, despite me having a hard time with love, I never let that break me. I never let that be my whole personality. Maybe that's why. Maybe she was upset because she thought maybe, oh, well, she has a hard time getting a man, that would hurt me. But it never hurt me. I always stood tall. I always found ways to be more confident within myself despite having a hard time getting a man. But I'm like, why does this girl keep putting me at arm's length? And the thing is, I was always supportive of her relationships when it was a good guy. Because some of the guys she dated, they weren't really the best. And I would be like, why did you date this guy? Like, you're like one of the prettiest girls in school. Okay, so I decided to re-record this whole 9 minutes that I have originally recorded for this last part of the video because I did not like how it was definitely one of those like moments where it's like, girl, back up away from the mic. I feel your breath. It's so hot. What is going on here? So to save your guys' eardrums from having to feel like somebody is just whispering and blowing their hot breath in your ear, I'm going to re-record this part. So what I was talking about essentially was, you know, why they're acting like this. And I do feel like it's a form of, jealousy because around that time I was growing up, it was the BBL era, it was the thick girl era. So, and y- and like I said before, I think I said it already in the other recordings that I did that the black community being thick is kind of a thing. People like being thick rather than being fat or skinny. That's kind of the whole thing with it. So I think that's what was it. And when I say like skinny, I'm talking about those girls, like I said, shaped like Ariana Grande or even Tyla. Those types of skinny girls. Those are the type of girls that kind of picked on me. All these skinny girls that kept me at arm's length didn't really like me that much. They always had a bigger friend. They always had someone bigger. And I don't know if it's because of like hatred or whatever. And I forgot to mention this in this video. I had a guy who didn't really like fat girls that much. He always made comments about people being fat. Mind you, his mom was big as fuck. I mean big. Big. I don't know why I say it like that. She was big, okay? She was taking up damn near over half the hallway. She was built. She was fat. You know, she was built like Patrick Star, Big Sister Sam, you know. And it's crazy because like how are you gonna how are you gonna make fun of people for being fat and your mom is fat? Do you hate your mother or something? Like, do you have like mommy issues? Is that what's going on here? And I forgot to mention that in the first 9-minute recording, but I'm glad I remembered now. And I've just noticed that people will dislike me for being fat. I feel like that's also a projection of something. I feel like that boy who didn't like me for and was making fun of people for being fat, he also would call people the F slur, the slur against gay people. And I look back on that situation, I remember my friend telling me that she caught him holding hands with a boy in the hallway. Like, it was during class, nobody knew, and they were holding hands. So I wonder if, he was calling people fat, making fun of their looks, and constantly saying the F slur. I wonder if that was, all a projection with him hating his mother and having issues with his sexuality. Because I remember there was this YouTuber, I think his name is Big Mouth Media, where he said that when a guy is, promiscuous like that, it's either because, he's, just a whore or he's gay. And I wonder if that's what was going on. I wonder if that's what's wrong with him. I wonder if he's kind of DL or because, he's apparently he dated a lot of girls. He's done a lot of, player stuff. And I wonder, because I remember that year as well, he also had a hard time getting a girlfriend. So I wonder if that was all like him projecting onto me and getting mad at me. Cause I don't know. Cause you like I keep saying that, but I do feel like all of it was a projection. Now when I look back on it, I wonder if the same thing, it was done with those two skinny girls and my best friend. They were all just deeply insecure about themselves. No, I know my best friend was insecure about herself because she was never seen without a man. She literally like she would be like, "Oh, I'm single. I'm single." And then she'd turn around and date a man. You see her dating somebody. And I wonder if it was like deep down she just couldn't handle being alone. And again, I do remember her. I don't think she really mentioned this, but I remember she said something about how her sister went off on her father because he texted something and trying to talk to them. And the sister went off and was like, "Where have you been all these years?" So I wonder if that was her trying to fill the void of not having her father in her life and trying to, like, have some form of male attention because, her father just abandoned her because her mom was a drug addict. I wonder if that was it. Like, I'm just like, now that I'm sitting down, it's like, I can talk about those two, the guy that I had feelings for and her, because again, I kind of knew them more than I knew the two, skinny girls that really didn't like me. And it's just like, honestly, I kind of want to make a part two and really like talk about those two a little bit more, but who knows? I might do another video. I don't know. But I honestly like this recording way better. So please leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.